Ever wonder what your team actually thinks about you? Because listen, you could do something perfectly in your business 10 times, and most of your team's going to think that you're getting it right because you own the company, or they'll think that you're just working hard because you're the boss. On the other hand, if you mess up just once in front of your team, that'll be the standard, right? It'll be what they believe is acceptable from that point forward until it's literally trained out of them. I'll give you a real simple analogy. And I think that this will make it super clear, because I think that understanding this helps us to become much better leaders, but it also helps us develop leaders underneath us almost automatically. And the example is this: it's showing up on time. We'll go much deeper on that, because in my life, I run each of my companies with daily meetings. I mean, they're short, they're very productive, and if you want to know exactly what we cover in those meetings or the paperwork that we use, I'll put a link at the end of this video to a video where I detail at least most of that. But no matter what kind of meetings we have each day, I am there on time. And it's required that every single person who's part of each meeting shows up on time. Now, I know a lot of business owners who show up late for their own meetings because they believe for some stupid ass reason that they're above everybody else and it's okay for them to make people wait for them, right? And I'm always shocked and amazed at the number of people who are CEOs or owners or leaders inside of a business, not mine, but a business, who feel like it's okay for them to be a few minutes late to a meeting. Then they wonder why people on their team are not highly driven and autonomous in reaching their targets. Now, one of the most important lessons that you could ever learn about leadership is that your actions are being watched by everybody else on your team. And more importantly, your actions are setting the standard. And what's worse is that because you're at the top of the ladder, you could show up on time 90% of the time. But if you show up late a few times, then that is now deemed acceptable by everybody else on the team. Because as a leader in our companies, we're held to a higher standard. And we need to remember that our actions, all of our actions, are training others around us how to act. So the best leaders know two things about leading by example. First, they know that they need to consistently do what's right because they need to lead by example. And second, they know that when somebody on their team picks up a bad habit, it needs to be addressed immediately, right? Now, there's a huge difference between how a manager handles this situation or how a leader is going to handle it. Because a manager is going to hear this and they're going to believe that they need to reprimand somebody who does something wrong. Completely not what we're talking about here, right? Whereas a leader will correct the action and then they're going to look at themselves, knowing that most employee actions came from watching those ahead of them. So great leaders are always learning how to become better leaders by watching the actions of people on their team. Because if somebody on my team picks up a bad trait, I always use that kind of as a litmus test to determine how people are seeing me and my actions. Now, that doesn't mean that every bad action of your team is a reflection of you, but if a great team member all of a sudden picks up a bad habit, then pointing it out to them and telling them that they need to fix it is only a temporary fix. We need to constantly lead by example, and leading by example needs to be an every day, every hour, every minute kind of a thing. The example that I used was showing up on time. And I learned that because after I was late for a few meetings very early on in my career, I found it really hard to get everybody else to show up on time. And it was only after I addressed it and then was on time for months before everybody else automatically not only showed up on time, but showed up prepared with their numbers and ready to bang through a highly productive meeting. And by the way, that's when my first company started to grow, because I made sure that every action or every value that I needed my team to live by, I lived by first. So think about somebody on your team who you wish was performing better. Then make a list of one or two actions that if they took them on a consistent basis would inevitably help them to perform far better. Then ask yourself, are you leading by example and taking those exact actions in a way that they could learn from? And if you are not their direct leader in the company, then have a meeting with their direct lead and find out if that person is leading by example and taking those specific actions in a way that will be learned from. Now, in our organizations, leadership is often less about teaching and more about improving ourselves because our team learns from watching our consistent actions. I like showing up on time every single time and being supportive of everybody else on our team and also staying focused on the most important actions that produce the results that we want. So think about what's one action you could take on a consistent basis that might make the people on your team perform better? And tell me what that is in the comments below. I mean, I read every single comment. I might not be able to reply the exact same day, but I read them all and I try to reply to every single one of them. I'll see you on the next video.